Thus far in our discussions, we've been really talking about the monitoring role of management, especially focused on the idea of CEO pay. But there's more to the monitoring function than just CEO pay. In theory, they're also ensuring compliance. We'll talk about that more with the Sarbanes-Oxley law. And they are approving the strategy. And in many really good active boards, by no means does the CEO have his or her way in terms of the strategy of the company. They do have to take it by the board and get their approval. But beyond this monitoring function, good boards do more than that. One is there a source of advice to the CEO? It can be lonely at the top, as they say. And so there's the question of should the CEO, I'm sorry, uh, what can the board members provide advice for? And then also they can provide resources. And I put in there especially for startups, but even for big companies or maybe new CEOs. And as an example of that, let's say that a company wants to perhaps investigate a strategic partnership or an alliance with another company. The CEO doesn't know anybody in that company, but one of your boards of directors is in fact friends with somebody that sits on that other company board or with that other company's CEO, and they can facilitate the introduction. So a good board provides more than just a hammer to keep the CEO in line. It also provides a lot of wisdom and access to good things. It goes without or should go without further explanation that good boards are active. But then you have the composition of the board. In general, you want the board to be independent from the CEO so that they're not just a rubber stamp. Well, what does this idea of independent mean? You hear the term inside and outside director. An inside director is one who is an employee of the firm, the CEO, and often one or more members of the C staff of the firm that will sit on the board of directors. And that's good because it gives them uh, deep knowledge of the company. But then outside directors, and these are people who are not employees of the company, but when you're really going to evaluate whether they're truly independent, it's not just are they not employees of the company, but it's are they not really tied to the CEO or other members of the executive team personally or financially? Are they genuinely independent? Now, here's the part of the challenge with that. Let's say that you have a CEO who's been in the business for a while and you're looking for independent directors. Does that mean that it has to be somebody that the CEO doesn't know? Well, what if the CEO knows most of the people in that industry? Does it mean that it has to be someone from outside that industry? Does that mean that it has to be someone that who doesn't really know anything about the business? You can imagine hiring people, or I'm sorry, putting people on a board that really don't know anything about the business. Their opportunity to contribute is going to be somewhat limited because they have so little expertise in the field. So there's a lot of tension going on between this independence dependence. But I have to tell you, I had a chance to get to know several bank presidents, none here in the Wichita Falls market. Let me be very clear about that. And I've heard them speak about their board of directors, and they were very clear what they were looking for from their board: a rubber stamp. They expected those directors to sign off on whatever they did, which is an example of not very good board man or not a very effective board because they didn't want independent thinking on the part of the board. They just wanted the name and the face so they could get on with business. The next bullet also seems non-controversial. You would like the directors to be financially vested in the outcomes of the company. Sounds straightforward enough, but that also has the impact of limiting who can serve on your board of directors. Should only wealthy people be able to serve on your board of directors? I can give you an example of that. In the 1980s, the the governor of the state of Arkansas, his wife was an accomplished lawyer. They didn't have a lot of money. They were still relatively young. But that wife sat on the board of a major Arkansas-based company. That would be Walmart, which is headquartered in Bentonville, Arkansas. So even though this woman did not own a lot of Walmart stock, she probably could bring a lot to the board of Walmart. oh, that Arkansas governor later became the U.S. president, Bill Clinton, and that wife lawyer was Hillary. So there's an example of maybe owning a big chunk of stock really isn't in everybody's best interest. Formalized processes and are themselves evaluated. Yeah, that all makes sense. Then we have Sarbanes-Oxley, or you could call it the Wake of Enron bill. What has that done? That has made the board members more financially responsible for the company. On the one hand, that seems like a good thing. On the other hand, you have people that would be excellent board members that may conclude it's not worth the time and it's not worth the financial liability. Time is one thing because you want a good board member to put in time. But if someone has substantial wealth, do they want to put it at risk by serving on a board knowing that they could then become the target of lawsuits about them, and they could have a lot more at risk than just what they have invested in the company? So it can have a chilling effect. And they in fact saw after Sarbanes-Oxley was passed, a lot of board members stepped down and board tenure did decrease. And struggling companies had a hard time finding people to join their board because nobody wanted to take the liability. Now here's a question I want you to ponder, and we'll talk about this in class. Should the CEO and the chairman of the board be the same person? Won't say any more on that. And then here's one thing in particular you have to pay attention to with the board of directors, and that is who sits on the compensation committee. And you will see in the past especially, there were a lot of unholy alliances, if you will, when it came to compensation committees. Let me illustrate how that works. The CEO of company A appoints the CEO of company B to be on the compensation committee on the board. And I say the CEO appoints. The CEO doesn't appoint, but let's say they successfully lobby the board to put the CEO of company B, who sits on the board, related industry, but not a direct competitor. They put them on the compensation committee. They decide the CEO of company A deserves a raise. So that person moves up in pay. Then the CEO of company B goes to his board and says, I think I need a raise. Look what's happened to the industry pay standards. And then uses CEO A's pay level as a part of their comparison. It happens. So one of the things you have to pay particular attention to is the compensation committee and how they are interlocked. Another major player, the folks that the board is supposedly representing, are the shareholders. We'll talk about them in the next video.